Hey everyone! So a lot of people ask me sometimes like what was the things that I reacted the most when I came to Sweden. I've done a few videos about what I hate and what I love about Sweden, but there were a few things that happened that really I would actually describe as a culture shock for me. And those are the 5 things I'm going to talk about in this video. So the first thing that I remember that happened to me is when I came to Sweden. I started to study Swedish at the university, and I was going out in the evening, Friday evening, with some school friends. The first thing I do was when we get with a cab to the center of the city is that I open the door, because I was outside and other people were gonna come out of the car. So I just opened the door to be nice, and this is something that you normally do in Italy, especially if there are girls in the car, right? You're not gonna try to hit on them, but you're just gonna try to be nice. At least that's how we see it. But when I opened the door, the girl that was inside was a friend of one of my friends, and she was Swedish. She looked at me and said, "You know I can open the door myself." I was being nice and opening the door. I was being nice to her. That was my first reaction. That, why are you doing this? Why are you being so rude to me? But this is actually seen from a Swedish perspective. Swedes are really independent. They like to be independent. They like to do things themselves. They really rarely look for help. And I noticed it later on when I had friends moving, if they were from Spain or Italy or other countries, they would immediately collect all the friends and ask for help. Hey, I'm gonna move, come with me and help me move. I have never heard this from a Swedish person, because you actually do things yourself. So this is really Swedish, and this to me was a big cultural shock. It's just I was trying to be nice to you. What is this thing? So pretty different cultures from that perspective. The second thing I remember, it was I bought a few years back a motorcycle that I unfortunately don't have anymore. But I traveled a lot with it, and I bought it in Sweden. I bought it here because it's much cheaper to buy it, it's much quicker to buy it. So it was a second hand, and these people who had a motorcycle came to my place. What we did is just we took a paper that came with the motorcycle, we just filled in my information, and we just put it in a mailbox. And from that moment, they said, "Congratulations, your motorcycle is yours." And I was looking at them like, "Are you kidding me? How?" I said, "Yeah, but we sent in the paper to the transport agency that says, and now this motorcycle is yours. When they get it, it's registered to your name, but from now on, from the date it is on this paper, it's yours. So now, effectively, it's yours." And that was weird thing number 1. But then, okay, a couple of days go, and now I have the motorcycle, so I have to buy an insurance for it. So I just called the insurance and say, "Hey, I know that you're the cheapest insurance for this motorcycle, and I want to get this kind of insurance." And the guy says, "All right, then it's done." What do you mean? What do you mean that it's done? "Yeah, it's done. Oh, you have an insurance." "But yeah, but what am I supposed to do?" "Nothing." So how can I have an insurance right now? I haven't signed anything. I haven't paid anything. I said, "No, but I put it in the system. So from now on, you have a valid insurance on your motorcycle." I said, "But how do I show it to people?" "So you don't have to show anything. It's like when the police eventually just check your registration number, it just comes out that your insurance with this kind of insurance and so on." In Italy, you have to have a sticker, to put it in front of your, not on the motorcycle, but in the car, on the inside of the car. And then I was, "But I haven't even paid you. How can you insure me if I haven't paid the money to you?" I said, "Yeah, but you will get an invoice in the mailbox. It's gonna be the price that we agreed on, and you can pay it within 30 days. So no worries, you're done." And that was so shocking. In Italy, you have to queue, and you have to be in an office, you have to pay for the insurance first, then they process all the paper, and then eventually, after a few days, you will get I can either go and pick it up, or you get at home the specific paper. I don't know if this changed, by the way. It used to be like this just a few years back, talking about 3-4 years back. You actually have the paper that you have to show on the windscreen of the car. So that was culture shock number 2. I talked about before, the absence of bureaucracy here in Sweden. This is it. I just called, say, "Hey, I want to insure my motorcycle. This is me. This is the motorcycle, the registration number." And that was done. That was all I had to do. So number 3, this is a huge culture clash between Italy and Sweden. And it is that in Sweden, you never take the last piece of a cake. When you have the famous Swedish fika, which is the coffee break, you would have a cake, you would start slicing it in roughly equal parts, and then it would be like the last piece. And nobody, if it's all Swedes, nobody will take it. Eventually, somebody in the end is gonna say, does anybody wanna share this with me? You don't say, does anybody want that? Because otherwise I'm taking it. In Italy, people will kill each other to actually take the extra piece and try to get as much cake as possible before you get to the last piece, because somebody else can grab it before you. This is absolutely not what happens in Sweden. In Sweden, is actually, you never take the last piece. It's rude. It's considered rude. Of course, if you're in a family, you can do it. That's not what happens. But normally, if you're at work or you're with other people, you never take the last bit. And this is why also Sweden is a paradise for me, because then I take my Italian side out and I always eat the last piece. I said, does anybody want this? And then eventually somebody who knows me said, yeah, I want to share it with you. Just do not allow me to take the full last piece. Now, the number 4 thing is, I've talked about this in a video before, and it was when I was studying at the university, and it's the contrast between Italian and Swedish university. A professor in an Italian university is somebody you don't get close to. Professor is really high up, and you are nobody as a student. But then I was in Sweden, and we needed help. We were going to do an exercise. It was a chemistry exercise, and we couldn't really get it done. So a Swedish friend of mine, he just picked up the phone, called the professor at the private number of the professor that he had on a website, and she said, we're down here, we're trying to do this exercise, we're gonna get it. Do you have time? 3 minutes later, this guy was down to the room where we were doing exercise, and he spent a half an hour with us, at least a half an hour with us, just going through all the exercise and explaining everything like fully from scratch. We called him, and he stopped whatever he was doing to come to us and help us fix whatever we needed help with. This is just unheard of. And maybe this professor was extremely nice, but this is, just to say the least, a cultural shock for me. In Italy, you would probably have, each professor would have 1 hour a week or 2 hours a week that they receive students to help them, and you would be there queuing, and most of the time you get there, maybe you travel 2 hours to get to the university because you live in another city, and you be there, you wait for hours, and then all of a sudden say, hey, but the professor's not here. Has anybody seen the professor? She said, no, he or she is not here today. All right, then go back home and try next week. Maybe you're gonna get luckier. That's just a completely different universe here. It feels like professor is actually almost a step below the students, where the students actually matter more, and the professor is there to help them accomplish everything they want to do. So, really nice if you're a student to come to Sweden. And I actually think it's better if you're a professor to come to Sweden. It's much nicer. And then finally, 5th thing. This was weird. I was invited at a Swedish birthday, and Swedes already know where I'm going with this. Moment of the cake. The cake comes in, and I was ready to start singing at the normal happy birthday version, which is the normal happy birthday to you. And I start singing this song while everybody starts singing this.
Ja må du leva, ja må du leva, ja må du leva ut i 100 år. Ja visst ska du leva, ja visst ska du leva, ja visst ska du leva ut i 100 år.
And this was the shocking thing I've ever had. What is this song? And I don't know if there are other Nordic countries who have versions of this song, but this is the actually happy birthday song in Sweden. So you have to learn that. There's nothing else to do, and for many years I actually felt super weird singing the Jag må Han, hon, leva. Just because it's, what is this? Why don't you homogenize with other people? But at the same time, I kind of like it. Because, you know, Sweden has its own version. Swedes have their version and they keep doing it. Why should we sing something that, I don't know, where it comes from, most likely from English? I don't know where the other version come from, the more established version in other countries come from. So this was the 5 strangest things. I would say the 5 culture shock that I had while in Sweden. There were more, but this is definitely the one that stepped up for me. So let me know what you think about this. Is it so weird, or do you think that it's actually better that there's those differences, and what do you agree most? Like, is there anything you reacted in this list? I actually want to know, because is it me, or is it the Swedes, or it's just fantastic that this happens?